Next up, let's take a peek at the media screen for the vehicle. So we're going to dive in deep and figure out exactly how everything works, set up Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, etc. So first thing to point out, we do actually have our four-way blinkers along the very top there. And then we've got a series of different buttons that let us change between a few different options. So as of right now, our radio's off. We can button press this. So we can literally push this in to turn the radio on or off, or we can press the radio along the very top there. So we can go radio and change between AM, FM, Sirius, XM, etc. simply by pressing this if we'd like to. We can also tune this way, so we can tune this way if we want to. We can also tune this way if we want to go that route instead. So we've got a few different options that are available. Now, one of the interesting things, as you see there, we've got a series of different starred stations and things like that. So we can easily press this in order to be able to save it as a preset. So we can easily save it or delete it as presets there. So as you saw, very, very simple. And we've got our base setup button. So we'll get to these different options in a moment, but starting off with the radio. So we do have all of the available options that we've got saved for our presets there. And if we want to delete one, we just move to it, we unstar it, and then it deletes it as a preset. And it's literally that simple in order to be able to save a preset too. So if you wanted to, you could literally just go, and if we just kind of tune to a different station, local rock station here, 94.9, we're going to save that, and that's now a default station there instead. So it is very straightforward. Band, we can change between AM, FM, Sirius, XM this way, or we just press the radio button there to change between all of these different options instead. We've got our HD radio and then a base menu there as well. So we do have the option of turning the display off completely if we wanted to. Press it in order to turn it back on. We can go to our main menu there again, and we can enter the station that way. So we can tune this way if we want to, or we can tune using this instead. So same thing, we tune to a station, we hit OK, and it's tuned to that station instead. So we've got a few different options there. We can look at all of the available stations in our geographic area, which is a nice thing. So if you're new to an area, you're not really sure what music you can listen to, we go there and we can literally swipe up and down between all available stations, and then we can just star out all of our favorite stations to save them as presets if we want to. We've got our info, we can delete all of our presets. We've got some base sound settings there as well. So we've got some options that we can get in here, but we'll cover up some basics. We've got our positioning there, so we can literally adjust what's going on with the positioning. So where do we want the focus of the audio to be? We've got our sound tuning there as well, so we can literally look at our treble, mid-range, bass and change these things out. These are pretty good settings as is, so our treble actually down a little bit is normally better, mid-range is good, and then bass is cranked, which honestly, this is a good option for our setup. We've got our driving there, and the beeping that we get here, if that beeping drives you nuts, you can turn it off there as well if you want to, so you've got that flexibility. We've got driving setting, or sorry, guidance there as well. So we've got our park safety priority and our driving priority, which means that our system volume is going to lower, so our audio is going to lower down when we run into one of these scenarios. System volumes, I think, is a brilliant design, and we do have the flexibility of changing between different sub-volumes. So we can change out our beeping, so you saw there voice prompts and things like that, so we can literally change out how loud all of these different things are. And like even specifics like Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, how loud or how quiet do we want things like the media screen, navigation, and a number of other things. So we have a ton of flexibility for the system volumes. I think more manufacturers should do this. I think it's a brilliant idea. We've got our speed-dependent volume as well. So as we start to speed a little bit on the highway, the volume will go up a little bit if we need it to. And then our startup volume limiter. So if we've got the volume cranked, we turn the vehicle off, and then we restart the vehicle, it's not going to play at that maximum level. And then we've got some radio noise there as well in order to get rid of some of the ambient noise. And then we can also do a reset to bring everything back to the factory's default screen instead. Moving back to our base radio, if we were to change out to our Sirius XM for a second, we now have a few other options. So we've got our live option there. We can save out as we saw the other stations. We've got our enter channel, and we've got some other options for our menu. So we've got our display off, available channel list. We've got our favorites. We can delete preferences, and then we've got back to our main sound settings there instead. We do have our QR code as well for our manual. So we can literally just push that, and then all we have to do is just pop open our phone. We're just going to scan, as you can see there. So open this Hyundai link. And we're going to open up and look at this. So we've got our user manual there as well. So it is nice that we do have the physical manual, but we do also have the flexibility of being able to jump into this main menu there instead. And we can look at everything on our phone, and literally everything is on there, which I think is a great idea. And then we can go to our home screen there instead, which brings us back to this main screen. Now, as I mentioned, this is going to be the base screen, which does give us wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, which we'll set up in just a moment. But this is the way that this main screen is going to look. We've got what station's currently playing. We can turn the media on or off. We've got our all menus there, which is exactly that. It's every available feature and option inside of the screen. Moving back home, we've got our phone and our setup. options. So let's start off with adding in a phone. So we just hit add phone, and we've got a few options there. So we've got our hands-free calling, our Bluetooth audio. So if you want to be connected just to listen to audio, we can do that without our phone actually being connected either. So we can select either or, we press OK.
Turn Bluetooth on from your device in order to search. On your device, select the name that matches vehicle name.
There we go. So we can pair up there as well. So we're just going to hit pair. Do we want to allow our contacts and favorites to sync up? Sure, why not? Perfect. And we're going to give that one a second, and it's connected there. And look at this. So it's connecting, but do we want to use CarPlay with our Tucson there as well? Yeah, let's do it. Super simple to look at this. Do we want to connect? Yes. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so we just have to make sure we hit next there. And it's making sure, obviously saying, let's make sure you're charging up. Hit OK. Perfect, and we're connected. Look at this. Super simple. And then as you can see there, we are now fully connected. So we've got our Apple Maps, we've got Google Maps, and we've got Waze. So even though this base screen doesn't have factory navigation, we still do have the flexibility of being able to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze directly through the screen. So it is nice, as you can see there, we have a nice layout. And then one of the great things is that we do also have the flexibility of jumping into our settings. We can go general, find our car, we go customize, and we can literally drag and drop. So if you have a tendency to listen to your podcast more, we can bring that to the top of the list. Audiobooks, same idea. If you've accidentally deleted something, it does show up to the very bottom here, but if you've kind of moved things around a little bit too much, you're not really a big fan of the way things look, we can just hit reset in order to bring us back to our factory default layout there instead. Pressing back, we're back to our main screen there instead. So it is nice that we've got so much flexibility. If we press this Hyundai button, this gets us back to that main screen instead. We can push Apple CarPlay to get back into CarPlay. And then if we turn the vehicle off, we turn it back on again, we will have that same prompt to reconnect to our CarPlay settings there instead. We can just go to our setup screen there. As you can see, we've got a few other options. So we've got our device connections and a few other things. So in order to be able to add in another device, so if you had multiple phones you needed connected, we could just press home to do it. We can hit phone, and that's going to bring us into our main screen because we are on the CarPlay side. We go back home, and if we go setup for a second there, we go device connections. We've got Bluetooth connections or phone projection. So Bluetooth connections, as of right now, I'm just connected to CarPlay. So I would need to connect to Bluetooth there. Fast, as you can see, I have to actually remove CarPlay for a second. So we're going to go there, disconnect, and it's disconnected Apple CarPlay. Now we jump back in, we've got Bluetooth, and then we can reconnect to that Bluetooth there setting instead. So we can do hands-free calling or Bluetooth audio. Let's actually, for the sake of this, connect to both of them again. Perfect, and we are now fully connected again. So rather than being hooked up through Apple CarPlay, it's strictly going to be a Bluetooth connection instead. So we could use YouTube app, and we can use things like Spotify, LiveX Live, and things like that to listen to Bluetooth audio on this thing instead. So we don't actually need to be hooked up through Android Auto and Apple CarPlay to listen to our audio. We could literally just set up through Bluetooth instead if we wanted to, just listen to our phone audio instead. So you've got some flexibility there. And then from this screen, actually, let's hop back for a second because we've got a series of other options. So connection priority, Bluetooth prompts, and a number of other things. But connecting an iPhone device and going through Apple CarPlay is literally that simple inside of this vehicle. Now, setting up an Android device is literally the exact same process. So if you weren't on the screen, we could go back to that main homepage there instead. We can go into the phone, but we want to actually go to our setup for a second. We go into device connections, Bluetooth connections, and we've got the iPhone that's currently connected, but we can also add in a new device. And same idea, do we want to have phone and Bluetooth audio or just one or the other? We're going to hit OK. There we go. So disconnected the iPhone, and it's going to connect.
Turn Bluetooth
there we go.
on from your device in order to search. On your device, select the name that matches vehicle name on the screen.
That's what I was waiting for. So we've got Tucson along the very bottom there. Perfect. Pairing request. These pins match up, so that's okay there. Hey, Tucson is now connected. It supports Android Auto, so literally that simple. We just kind of follow through. I love it. I love how simple it is. Do we want to allow access to contacts, etc.? We will get to that one in a second. So what we want to do is continue here first. And do we want to allow contacts? Sure, why not? Boom, look at this. We are fully connected there. I love it. We can press the main screen here in order to go to our settings. We've got our traffic, guidance, things like that. We can button press here in order to be able to get into our podcast, or we can jump back into our Google Maps instead. Notification Center, and then our Google Assistant. Now, we do have the option of pushing the button on the steering wheel there in order to get to our Google Assistant. We can also do things because we're in Google. If we had our Siri Assistant enabled, we'd have that flexibility on the Apple side of things. But we could also say, okay, Google, and we can pull up our Google Assistant that way instead. We push the button along the very bottom here to get to our main summary screen. So we've got our podcast, maps, and a few other things there as well. So it is nice that we've got so much flexibility. Along the very top, we can see what our connection signal's like, as well as our current battery level for the phone. So it is very straightforward setting up both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay inside of this thing. We can go back to our main screen, jump into our setup there if we want to, and if we go to our connections, I want to show you something for a sec. We're going to disconnect CarPlay for a second. Or Android Auto, I should say. We go into our Bluetooth, and we've got a few other options. So we go into our connection priority. So as of right now, I've got both of my phones connected. We can literally just do a drag and drop. So if the vehicle recognizes both phones, who is it going to try to connect to first? So we can literally just kind of do a drag and drop there for our own personal preferences. We've got our Bluetooth voice prompts as well, so we can mute them out if we want. We can go to a privacy mode, or we can do a full reset as well. If we go into our Bluetooth connections, we can add in another device, or if we hit delete devices, we can mark individual ones, we can unmark, we can mark all if we'd like. We hit delete and delete. And as you can see there, so first one's disconnected, and there we are. And it literally is that simple to be able to set up a phone inside of this vehicle. All right, now from this main screen, if we jump, so we can go back if we want to, we can just press the home screen there, and going into our all menus. So we've got a series of other options. We do have Bluelink for things like vehicle diagnostics, maintenance, and things like that. You do need, so if we go diagnostics for a second there, so you need to actually activate it when you purchase your vehicle in order to do it. But it will be nice because you could use Bluelink for connecting to your phone in order to be able to do certain things through your phone there as well. Moving back, we can jump into our radio, which again, we saw we can push the button up there instead if we wanted to. Moving into our all menus, we've got a few other options. So this one right here is media, which is grayed out. So we can push media there or there. But as of right now, there's no media currently connected. So we have the option of connecting our phones through Bluetooth audio if we wanted to. If we had an iPod, we can connect that way as well. And then we've got a few other options. So if we had a USB stick with MP3s, we could literally plug that in order to be able to listen to MP3s there instead. We've got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay that are now grayed out because I've removed both of them from the vehicle. We've got our voice memo there as well, and as you can see, we've got one voice memo, and we can also record other memos if we wanted to. Moving back, we've got our quiet mode. So quiet mode is neat because, there we go, so all volumes are going to be lowered down if we need to. So if you've got sleeping kids in the back there, we can quiet out the rest of the vehicle. Moving to the side, we've got our valet mode, which we do need Bluelink in order to be able to activate that, but that's going to lock the screen out so that we don't have to worry about a valet potentially going through all of our different settings and things like that. We've got our bass setup there as well. Moving into our sound settings first, so we've already seen all of these ones, so adjusting our treble, mid-range bass and things like that. We've got our device connections, which same thing, we've already seen how all of this stuff works. We've got our display and a few options that are available there. So we've got our illumination. So as of right now, it's locked into the nighttime mode. We've got our daylight mode, nighttime mode, or we can do an auto mode where the vehicle's automatically going to flip us between the daytime or the nighttime, just depending on how bright it is outside. We can also link it out to our cluster there, and then we can also adjust manually that way if we want to. So it is kind of nice that we've got so many different options available there. We've got our blue light filter, which I love this option. So blue light filter is great because later on at night, you can literally schedule when you want the blue light filter to turn on. So if you tend to drive home later on at night because of work, you can literally have it set up so the blue light filter comes on at certain times of the day so that it's just easier on your eyes. We've got our screensaver, which a few different options there, because if we go display off, nothing there. But we've got the option for an analog or a digital clock. The analog clock, we've got a few different looks. So let's say if we switch out to this nice little watch face there, we go display off. Look at this. So it is nice that we've got so many different options that are available there. So if you want a little bit more of a calming screen, you've got the flexibility to do that. We've got our home screen there, so same idea, we can kind of adjust what we want showing up in individual places there as well, which I love the fact that we've got that option and we can set so many different things up there as well. Media notifications, do we want a notification when we change out our different media there? Extended rear camera use is an option there as well. And then we've got a reset. So we could reset this thing back to our factory default instead. So if we've gone through too many different things, we've messed with our settings too much, or if you're even just selling the vehicle, we can just do a reset there if we'd want to. And as you see there, a few other options. So we've got our display, we've got 3 individual buttons there. So 2 on the steering wheel, and then we've got our 1-star button there as well. So as you can see, we've got a custom button, and we can literally have it set up for whatever we'd like it to do. So as of right now, it's set for display off. So if we press it, display goes into that quiet mode instead. We can have it turn into our phone projection. We can have it for the home screen instead. So we push that button, and it's going to launch us back into our home screen. Actually, it probably wasn't a good idea for me to do that, but we've at least got that available as an option. So you can literally set this up for what you'd like it to, and it's the same idea with the steering wheel as well as for that mode button. So the mode button on the steering wheel changes between all of our active sources. So I always recommend just keep all of these open, because if they're available sources, it'll flip you between every available option. We've got some general settings, which we've got our model number, we've got our system info, so we've got storage capacity there, we've got our user manual, and we can do a factory reset. We've got our date time, so we've got our daylight savings time option there. We've got our 24-hour mode there as well, which daylight savings time, I think that's actually right. It's 3:27, perfect. We can switch out to our military time there instead, and then we can also change out the time zone that we're in. Our languages, we've got English, French, Spanish, and Korean. Some different options for our keyboards there as well. We've got our Bluelink settings, so we can enroll in there easily as well if we'd like to, and that gives us the flexibility to do things like remote start and things like that using our cell phone. Wi-Fi, we've got a few different options there as well, so we can generate a new Wi-Fi password if we wanted to. And we've got some other options for our climate control settings. So we've got our recirculate air. We've also got our ventilation there as well. We can schedule when we want it to ventilate out. And then we can also do an auto defrog or a defrost option there as well. So we do have quite a few options that are available as a default there. Moving back into our setup there, and we can go into our all. I think that was it. Setup, we've done that. Perfect. We've got some base notifications, which again requires Bluelink, and then we can just button press there to get into our manual instead. So quite a few different options, but very simple all at the same time. We do have a few other buttons along the side there. So as I mentioned, we can press this in order to be able to seek between stations. If we want to, we can also tune this way. And we can also press in order to go to different options there as well. So we can save these things as a default. We can jump into our setup there if we want. So that was kind of neat, right? I do kind of find it interesting that we've got wireless Android Auto Apple CarPlay in the lower trims, and it's wired in the higher. I think it should probably be the other way, but here nor there. I do love the fact that we've got the Android Auto Apple CarPlay settings regardless. But if you run into any problems, or if you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. More than willing to talk you through any issues that you may be having. But if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your social networks. And until I see you next time, take care.